Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Let me introduce you to Ian Smythe and also Andrew Fraser from the Historical Radio Society of Australia. We went down to the State Library, or the Institute, which is just the other side of it, or adjoined to it, a couple of days ago. And I tell you what, don't miss that. It really is a most amazing display of where we've come from. Here am I sitting here at the dining room table doing pretty much what Jack Hume did down on Green Hill Road at Parkside in 1924. Because all of that in the beginning, 5 Don N, came literally from Jack's dining room table. Now, Ian and Andrew, both of you, welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for having us.
I have the feeling that you'd rather be in there at the exhibition, enjoying the whole thing.
In fact, I'm supposed to be there now, but
well, thank you.
For you, Jeremy.
Thank you for the sacrifice. I just wandered around taking pictures of it all because it's not just old radios. It's where am I?
The story of broadcasting, really.
It is the story of broadcasting in the world. If I go and try to find all of my pictures, see all. Now that should do it, shouldn't it? Favourites. Oh, God, no.
Get
rid of that. I'll have to find it later.
Which one were you thinking of?
Well, I went around because whoever put all of it together, who was responsible for the exhibition?
Well, there are two of us mainly. There's a chap, one of our members called Tony Bell, and he looked after all the actual radios you saw on the tables. He selected those and called them from members. Yeah. And the research and the artwork and the posters on the walls were mine. I loved the artwork and the posters. I thought that they were so beautifully put together and captured. God knows how you could do it 100 years so simply and so posters.
Beautifully and so graphically.
Thank you.
No, it was a fantastic effort.
Yeah, thanks.
How would you value all of those old radios and memorabilia?
Well, they're invaluable because they are not just a monetary value. It's the memories. It's the development of technology. Yeah. It's the employment of people that in South Australia over 100 years. Yeah. You look at the work that was done by Philips, for example, in Adelaide.
Yes.
If radio and television hadn't come along and Philips decided to build in South Australia after the end of World War II.
Was this at Hendon?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yes, when
I did my apprenticeship down there, 1970.
Golly.
Unfortunately, the place closed down when I was there. I finished up packing, loading trucks.
It is so sad to see what was once viable businesses, a viable industry, somehow disappearing. And I don't believe anyone wants it to disappear.
No.
Can't be evolution. It can't be fate.
Well, I guess there were a couple of things that came together at the time. One of them was radio components got smaller and smaller and cheaper to make, and we couldn't compete anymore with some of our near Asian neighbours who made components and flooded the market with them. And then the other issue that happened at the same time really was the Australian government tariffs on imported radios and equipment. Yeah. I mean, tariffs is a big topic right now around the world. And from my way of thinking, you can't keep tariffs forever. Eventually, you're creating an artificial bubble.
But you're trying to protect your industry.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if somebody down the road can produce something more cheaply because the workers are less expensive and the conditions are anything that people will take, obviously your product's going to be very much cheaper. Now, if we're going to have this standard of living, we've got to find some way of making that imported product less attractive.
But the trouble is, the moment you put a tariff on that, as technology moves forward, the gap between reality and the price you're paying gets wider and wider. And so it becomes less economic to do it, because eventually you have to remove the tariff, or circumstances might change that it may disappear, and then you're really behind the eight ball. So I guess the Australian government was in a difficult position at the time in the 70s. So how do we keep Australia moving forward as a modern industrial nation in Southeast Asia,
Yes.
and not part of Europe and Britain as it had been,
Yes.
and compete with our near neighbours. So it was a real juggling act, I guess, in the 70s for the government.
Yeah, the juggling act, that brings me to one of my hobby horses. 1975, Gough Whitlam went to the Lima to Lima. There was a big meeting of mostly socialists, and there was a thing called the Lima Declaration.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Yeah. We signed that, and one of my favourite things to do is to Google it, because people don't believe this. Let me Google it. What can you tell me about the Lima Declaration?
I remember, I can't remember the details.
It's not going to
Closed
do it.
down Australian men.
I did, yes.
That's what it did. It closed down Australian industry. Let me do it again. What can you tell me about the Lima Declaration?
Yeah.
I'll read it. It says, in 1975, the Whitlam government signed the United Nations Lima Declaration, through which the Australian government sold out Australian industries and workers by specifically agreeing to transfer manufacturing to third world countries, supposedly to help them develop. You
We're
know?
the ones trying to develop now, aren't we?
That's correct.
Yeah, and now we're complaining about it because that was all achieved. It's, our demise is by our own hand almost.
I guess, yeah. So, but what do you do in that situation? I mean,
We can't go back and undo it. That's the truth.
that's right.
You look in that radio collection, how many radio sets were actually built in Adelaide?
Yes.
Just
We
dozens of brands we had.
and we were pioneers at virtually every level. Now you worked at Hendon for Phillips.
Hendon, yes.
How did you? What's your connection with radio?
Mine is through television. I worked at Channel 9 in Adelaide here.
Yes.
Before that, briefly for the BBC.
Yes.
I wrote and produced a children's television program called The Curiosity Show.
Oh God, yes.
And,
Enormously
with
successful.
Dean Hutton and Rob Morrison.
And a national show at that.
And international too.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
sold to several other places and dubbed into a couple of other languages as well.
We could do all of those things then, but we can't do it now.
That's right.
And I think Sydney basically wants to sort of have us as a suburb,
Branch office.
a suburb of Sydney and
Satellite
Melbourne.
of Sydney.
Yeah, well, I don't go along with it. What sort of value would you put on all the radios again?
You asked that a few minutes ago.
Priceless.
Well, there's 100
Priceless.
radios.
Well, there's actually 130 radios
130.
altogether in that display.
What's the most valuable one?
That 5CL
The
one.
5CL
the
one would be.
5CL, the Eagle on the 1920s table. It's a beautiful big, for those who hadn't seen it, it's a wooden cabinet with a glass front.
Oh, yes, I know
The
that
valves
one.
are in front, and when it was on, the valves would glow and the lid would be shut. And it had a huge big horn speaker sitting on top, and it would have been absolutely magnificent.
I think that either that same radio or a similar one was over at Scammel's for auction about 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know it had an asking price of $5,000 to $10,000 then,
And that was
because it's
made,
so rare.
that was made in Adelaide, that radio too, the 5CL.
It was made on, I think the address on it was North Terrace from memory. It had a placard on it.
There's a couple of others on the 1920s to 30s table that are quite valuable. There's two Bakelite Art Deco radios. One of them was called an Empire State. It was a white marble one.
Yes.
And next to it was an Airzone Radio Star.
As in the Empire State Building, sort of looking like that.
It looks a bit like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That's actually a misnomer.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yes,
no,
yes.
that's the one that.
That's the black one though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were
It's
works
called
of art.
It's called Empire State, but it actually isn't. It's actually the AWA building in Sydney.
Oh, yes, of course.
And
Yeah.
the common name for it
Yeah,
stuck,
yeah.
and so everyone let's just call it Empire State, but it's actually not.
Yeah. The good old AWA radio network, which I worked for way back in 1967, I think they had dozens of stations all over Australia. The AWA network.
What was the radio station then they had in Pitt Street, I think it is in Sydney, where that tower is? Oh, no, York Street.
No, that's the AWA
That was
building.
That's
AWA.
AWA.
2CH.
2CH was
2CH, yeah. Okay. It was up on the 10th floor, but I don't know what was in the rest of the building, but it was certainly a striking building. Landmark building. I did a lot of work for Ern Smith's
Yes.
in the 5DN days.
Yes.
And Ward Smith and I would go out and regularly have lunch when people went out and had lunch. And he would regale me with wonderful stories about what was the brand? Because they made their own radio.
Scharnberg Strauss.
Scharnberg Strauss.
And it's a lovely story of how they came, because the Smiths were competing with overseas brands like Bang & Olufsen and Stromberg Carlson.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Smith and Smith hasn't got much of a ring to it, so we've got to have a European name. So they came up with Scharnberg Strauss. That means absolutely nothing, but it's a great marketing tool.
But it sounds like Stromberg Carlson, doesn't it?
It does a bit.
Does it?
Yes.
That's what I always thought too. It was a
But
bit
there's
of
quite in our exhibition at the Town Hall Library, the Adelaide, the North Terrace Library. There are quite a few Scharnberg Strausses on display there, and there's a beautiful 1952 console radio running in the little workshop that we have as part of the exhibition.
Well, I'm looking at a picture of that little workshop there, and it's got, if I can get it a little bit bigger, it's got Jennings Olding.
Yes.
Jennings Olding.
Jennings
has
and
a sign
Olding was a
there.
little radio repair shop on Main North Road at Nailsworth.
And this is what it looks like. It looks like a little old-fashioned radio repair shop.
That's right. Well, that was the intention. We wanted to pay tribute to all those little radio and TV repair shops that every suburb and every town in Australia used to have.
Jeremy, in 2015 I gave you for your birthday a restored Scharnberg Strauss that I bought at auction.
Oh, yes,
You've
beautiful.
got that at home somewhere.
Yes, I've got it at home.
Yeah.
Yes,
That worked quite well. That's one of the things.
And it was a time when they took so much trouble to design and make the cabinets. They were pieces of furniture. They were works of art.
Also in that exhibition, you'll notice by the western window, there's a huge big radiogram with a cocktail cabinet in the middle.
Yes, I saw that.
That's
really good.
That's a Scharnberg Strauss as well.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Even though
An amazing piece of furniture.
that's right, and the radio itself is fantastic. It's fully restored and working.
Yeah.
And the turntable is an English Garrett that they just bought in bulk and whacked into it.
Yeah.
But that's fully restored and working and now has Bluetooth.
You don't have any problems with valves, or have you taken out the valves? And
In Adelaide, the Historical Radio Society, we've got a valve bank with 10 to 15,000 valves in it. So
did you hear that, Tony?
I'll be dropping by.
we won't be running out of valves anytime soon. Yes, there's plenty there.
That console, it was an entertainment centre, is what it
Absolutely.
was.
Yeah.
And you could just sort of see Dad with a coat and tie on in a chair, sitting there with a pipe. And Jack Davey would be on, or there'd be one of those national...
Or they'd be arguing over Bob Dyer and Barry Jones, who was right.
Yep.
In Pick a Box.
I'm looking at this picture of the repair shop, which you should all of you, everyone, go along and look at that, if nothing else. And you can just imagine somebody sitting there with a soldering iron, fixing it up, because you could fix radios, you could fix things back in those days, couldn't
and you could also take your jug in and get a new element put in it, or your toaster if it broke down. They fix that too.
Well, now we just throw things away.
In the bin,
Yeah. Caroline was showing me this barbecue that she bought the other day. $50, and it's a barbecue in a briefcase.
Oh, really?
But how long will it last? Probably not long.
There's a wonderful movement that's beginning to spring up in the eastern states and is coming here and overseas too, is repair centres. And some of the public libraries in South Australia actually have repair days. And you can take an item to one of these libraries and there'll be people on duty for that day who can repair it.
Yeah.
And that's a growing movement.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Atwater Kent Radio.
Yes.
Make it a 365-day Christmas, and there it is, with a horn at the top.
That's right. Atwater Kent was an American brand that was imported here to Australia.
In the heyday in the mid-20s, they employed 12,000 people on a 32-acre site.
In America.
In America, Atwater Kent.
32,000 people.
I think Philadelphia.
I'm not sure where they were.
Yeah, somewhere.
Andrew?
I've got an idea it's Philadelphia. I'm not 100% certain.
Yep.
Atwater Kent was a businessman, born in the 1870s. He came up with the idea, I believe, of a distributor in motor cars.
Oh, yeah.
But something had to do with that. That's how he started. But yeah, he built this radio factory, and he wanted to build the finest radios in the world.
Yeah. Come closer to the microphone.
He wanted to build the finest radios in the world.
Yep.
And Yeah, like I said, it was the biggest manufacturer in the 1920s in America. 12,000 people, 32-acre site, which is about 12 hectares. And then the Depression came along.
Yes.
And that was the beginning of rent for him.
Yeah. Looking, I took lots of pictures. Here is the complete range, it says. This is a poster.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it says operatic. And there are two of them.
Yeah.
This is a good South Australian company.
Bland
Radio.
Bland
on
Radio,
South Road.
yes.
Yeah, what? Bland Radio.
Yeah,
Bland name, isn't it?
the bland name for a very good radio.
That was
Mr. Bland, was it?
Yeah, it was. I believe so, Mr. Bland, yes.
Hear the tests better on his master's voice, the Little Nipper.
That's right. Yes.
Golly, wonder why they called it the Little Nipper.
I think it was
Donk.
it was a send up of HMV with a little dog in front of the.
Oh, I see. Yeah. His master's voice. The Astor Aladdin gives you the world.
Astor was Sydney based.
It was, yes.
I think,
yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Without
Used to be
B
the
or C
slogan was, "It's an
batteries."
Astor, that's the difference." There.
yeah.
Yeah.
Aladdin gives you the world without B or C batteries. I guess it was a plug-in model. But hang on, there is the picture that I was describing now, sitting in their chairs, comfortable chairs,
That's
listening,
right, yes.
listening to the radio.
Well, all these early radios were all battery-powered.
Really?
Yeah, some had dry batteries. A lot of them had either a 2-volt or 6-volt accumulator, car battery, and then dry batteries of HT, high voltage, and what's called the bias voltage. That was back in the 20s when they started bringing out mains-powered radios for the city. To the country users, they were making radios to run on 6-volt car batteries. Had a vibrator power supply in it.
Yeah.
And the idea was when your battery run down, you swap batteries for one in your car to recharge it.
Makes sense.
But also, a lot of country farms had 32-volt lighting systems.
32-volt windmills.
Yeah, that's right. And so they had 22-volt radios.
And
We had wind power in the 1920s. We're going
Absolutely.
full circle.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. And so Bland Radio used to make models that were 32-volt or 6-volt, as well as 240-volt.
Yes.
what about the
And AC/DC too.
what about the radio that is in fact a hall clock,
Oh, yes.
a grandfather
Now,
clock?
that's the 1920s version of space saving, isn't it?
Well, up the top, it's a clock. It's a piece of furniture.
a
Down the
grandfather-
bottom, it's a grandfather clock.
It's a grandfather clock
Yeah.
with the pendulum swinging behind the radio mechanism.
Wow, golly!
That one was
Golly.
imported from America.
Now, what did you call that one?
That's called a gem chest. It's an American imported radio from the 1920s.
Looks like a little bit like a safe.
It does, and it's metal. If you tap that, the whole casing is metal.
What was the sound like? Were they good loudspeakers?
Well, no. To be honest, they're attached. They're a bit, if you pardon the pun, a bit tinny.
Bit tinny.
Because the speakers were mechanical. They're not like modern
Oh, right.
suspended
right,
speakers.
right.
They work a little bit differently. They're voice coil and magnets to
Yes.
get them to run, but they.
Some had like a diaphragm type arrangement,
Yeah.
yes.
You've got really the complete history of a lot of the personalities. Thank you for including me, by the way. That was very nice of you.
pleasure.
And there's 5DN. 5DN Advertising itself is the first station in the state for many, many years. That's the one, which was that, Tony? The MLC building on the corner of King William and Hindley. What was it? It's a hotel now.
Now, yes, it's the Mayfair.
Now the
Hotel.
Mayfair Hotel. Okay. Okay, what was the one that I saw? I couldn't get a picture of it, where Jerry Harvey was mentioned as a kid.
Oh, selling.
He was selling
Selling vacuum
vacuum
cleaners.
cleaners
Yeah, door-to-door vacuum cleaners.
for Godfrey's.
That's
no,
right.
No, Goodwin's in Sydney.
Oh, Goodwin's.
Yeah, he started life as a door-to-door vacuum
Salesman.
cleaner salesman in Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a Goodwin's television set,
Yeah, it looks-
black and white TV in our exhibition too, that's made by Goodwin's.
Yeah, look, it's an amazing exhibition.
One of the things, Jeremy, that might surprise you is that I've been blown away by the number of young people who've seen one of the crystal sets in this display and not understood or even heard of a radio that needs no batteries and no electricity. And we explain to them how it works, and they don't believe you.
How could that little tiny piece of crystal, what is that crystal, by the way?
It's galena or
Lead
a form
sulfur.
of silica.
Yeah, lead sulfide, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I'm not sure what the
Well, how
chemical
would
is.
somebody figure out or invent
Who discovered that it can pick up radio frequency?
Who would know?
Yeah, exactly.
And were they actually putting radio?
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Signals programs out there when there may have only been 2 radios, or
it must have been about the same time that. Yeah,
I mean, they had originally. So all the first radios, believe it or not, actually digital transmission, Morse code.
Yeah, of course.
And they use spark transmitters, big induction coils making sparks, which sided a tuning coil, tuned circuit, and had an antenna, and it radiated RF energy right across the whole spectrum. So all the early radio transmitters up to the early 1900s and 1910 were all spark transmitters. Now, Thomas Edison actually invented what was called the fermionic diode.
Yeah.
So him being a DC man.
That's direct current.
Yeah, he wasn't interested in any rectify AC current.
No.
So
Alternating
cast aside. But then, I think it's Alexander Fleming, I think it was, did research on a diode valve and discovered it could rectify RF signals.
Yeah.
Because
we're not very technically minded.
No.
So they're related developments in the technology for creating signals.
Yeah. I mean,
and look, think about the relatively short time ago that people were communicating with Morse code, dot dash, dot dash.
Yeah, digital. That's all digital transmission.
We've sort of gone full circle because digital that we have now is sort of like Morse code.
Absolutely, yes, it is.
What of the future? I mean, you're experts in the past and the present. What about the future? Well, online radio, do you think that is the future? Is that the way we're going to go?
Even further to an AI bot sitting where you are, Jeremy.
No, could be. Why would you? Well, I work for nothing anyway. I mean, you can't get cheaper than that.
Exactly.
You've heard of a low budget program.
That's just the low.
This is a no budget program.
Well, if you want an AI,
a what?
Artificial.
Tune into the Court of Public Opinion at jeremycordeaux.com.
Yeah.
Are they?
God, they're absolutely clever. But was a time when, judging by those posters, that it was a very simple market. I don't know how many radios there were out there, but everyone had his or her slice of the cake. You had 5CL and 5AN, 5DN, 5AD, 5KA.
That was it.
And that was it. And everyone had his audience. Everyone did something slightly different, had different personalities and all that kind of thing. Years later along comes 5AA, and then years after that comes along SAFM. And it still worked, it was still viable. Then the government says to radio station owners, well, you go digital, because we want the spectrum or the frequency or something. You go digital and we'll give you all of these other stations to play with. Now, they couldn't really maybe make a lot of money out of the one that they had, let alone all the ones they were given. So now the thing is fractured. The cake is cut in so many different ways. I don't know how people can actually make a quid out of it anymore.
No, it's very difficult.
Very odd. Yeah. And they call it progress, though.
Of course, yes.
No, I think, in all honesty, we have seen the best of it.
I think that radio is suffering badly in a lot of countries, but I think it's actually surviving here in Australia better than most.
No.
We still have more AM stations.
Yes.
We still have more FM stations. In America, they're closing down AM and FM and possibly DAB digital.
Okay, so what are they going to do if they close down AM, FM and DAB?
Only streaming, that's it.
Which is what we're doing.
That's right.
Wasn't there one?
And there are car manufacturers in the US who don't put AM and FM radios in cars anymore. It's only for streaming.
You've got, speaking of car radios, you've got, the car and the car radio were a great invention, inseparable, in fact. And the name Ferris, in my mind, looms large. A Ferris car radio.
The Ferris Diamond Dot.
Ah, yes, Diamond Dot. And you've got one, I think, in the exhibition.
We do.
Which is a portable one. You can take it in and put it in the car, and you can take it.
It had a little cradle that was screwed to the underneath side of the dashboard in your FJ Holden.
Yeah.
Or in your later Holden. And it would slide in and out of the cradle when you went down to the beach or for a picnic.
Yep.
Until it came back with sand in it.
Good thinking. Then you could take it down to the little repair shop. And he'd get out his soldering iron and it would all be fixed. But you give a little nod to television. You've got a very old...
A Firenze camera from Channel 7 in Adelaide.
Channel 7, yes. I remember when I started in Sydney at Channel 10 in about 1969. And they had those sort of turret cameras.
That's right.
And that lens was a close-up, that was a medium, that was a long.
That's in the days before we had zoom lenses.
Zoom lenses, yes. Yeah, I remember when they got their first zoom lens, it was quite something.
Yeah.
God, something to play with. Yeah.
Someone play a trick on you on air and get you to keep on talking.
Oh, yeah.
Moon landing or something. Or perhaps
well,
trying to see how long you could talk for.
Yeah, it got to be really silly because you can't go to something. I mean, in radio, it's completely different, but you can't stop, and you can't go to something. It isn't a longer piece of program. So we would have these things called hostings, and I guess I cut my teeth on those moon shots where you literally would get the sound or you'd get the vision, crackly and hard to see and all the rest of it. It could be a moon walk or whatever it is. But it was fascinating, and I can sort of see what that did for television. Must have been amazing. But we covered it at Channel 10, and we would get either the picture or we'd get the sound, and sometimes we got them both. That was
at the same time.
Very good day, that was. But if the thing dropped out, you couldn't go to a piece of program, so you just simply had to keep talking till
fill the gap. Yes.
It got back. And I got to be very good at it, just padding, you know. I really did get to be good at it. And they decided one day down the automated studio, Channel 10, Studio C, they used to have a shot box up in the control room, and the cameras were automated, and they set it up and then just literally pressed a button. Anyway, it was the newest of all of the television stations in Sydney, as the 10s were. And the monitor had a thing on the back where you could actually have the studio that you were watching on your monitor, or you could have the program that the people were watching. And somehow along the way, the floor manager decided to have some fun, so he changed over the monitor. So the station went on with its programming, and the studio went on with me. And you know how in television they give you this stretch.
Yes.
keep talking, and you know they just kept doing it, and I kept talking, and I think it must have been 3/4 of an hour or something. Anyway, it was just falling flat, and I think they thought I would cry, get up, run, burst in. I don't know what they thought, but you can't. The show must go on.
That's right.
So in the end, they said, "Okay." It was a joke.
Let him go.
Oh, you mean you made me talk for 45 minutes? Anyway, that's
would have done it.
Well, I don't know, but interesting days. They were sort of cowboy days in a way. And I came to Adelaide. Were you there when I did Cordeaux's Adelaide?
No. I think I was living in the UK.
Ah, right. It lasted for I think 13 weeks. Didn't Channel 9, yeah. Yep. I think it was back in the day when Murdoch owned it. And then for some reason they sold it to NBN in...
the Land family from NBN in Newcastle.
Newcastle, that's right. Yeah.
So 9 Adelaide wasn't actually part of the 9 network.
No.
As such.
No. And then they I don't think had a lot of interest in local production. They were all Sydney, 2UE and...
Well, they had 3 national children's programs coming out of the studios at 9 Adelaide.
Oh.
Come On Kids, Curiosity Show, and Humphrey were all shown nationally.
And the Lambs were very successful.
Yes.
I didn't know exactly what happened to the Empire, but it
Got slaughtered, maybe?
I think...
I don't know.
Well, the 86 stock market crash did cause a few problems when suddenly the Australian dollar dropped by half.
Yeah.
All the content from America that they'd had contracts to purchase all suddenly cost double.
Yep.
The money had to be found somewhere else.
Yeah.
And local production was it.
Yeah. I hope the kids come along and see this exhibition and they join the dots and say, well, this is what we do today and this is how it all began. You also give a little nod to the pocket radio, which I think is fascinating in itself.
Well, that's this current generation of radio in a lot of ways. That miniaturization allowed the radio to go from being a big piece of room furniture to something you could put in your pocket. And the Walkman came along with it. The first one was just a radio, then the second one had a cassette player, and the third one had a DVD player. And so the whole thing would fit in your pocket.
It kept growing, yeah.
That's right.
And there's a great story. It may be apocryphal, I don't know. I'd like to think it's right. But Sharp, I think it was a Sharp, wasn't it? The pocket radio?
Oh, the one that was actually called pocket radio.
Yes.
Yes, I think it was, yeah.
Well, the guy, the Japanese guy who owned the company, they ran into a small problem. And that was that the male shirt pocket wasn't quite big enough. So he bought 3 of the biggest shirt manufacturing companies and made bigger pockets. Which
problem solving.
Lateral thinking. I like to think that's true because that shows great initiative.
The first transistor radio was called a Regency, wasn't it?
Regency?
Yeah. I think it was Texas Instruments in America built it. It wasn't what you call a flash radio, but it was small. Then a small Japanese company, later bought out a Japanese version, that small transistor radio. It was about the same size as a pocket. That company then changed their name to Sony. That's how they started.
Yeah.
And there was
yes.
a time that they thought, well, Japanese is another word for cheap and nasty.
Well, originally,
it was, yes.
Yes. And they tell me that there was a place that they renamed in Japan called USA. And they would put stamp on things made in USA, which is USA, just to get over the problem that they had, which was an image problem, I suppose.
There was a question asked earlier about where do we go from here, and I think the answer to that is that it's going to go up into the cloud, literally. When we talk about Australia being such a large continent and installing the NBN complex is a very expensive exercise, particularly in remote areas where cabling is expensive. It's like the transmission of electricity. The cabling is the very expensive part of the whole deal. Yes. So in future, I'm surprised we're pursuing the NBN when really we should all be going wireless. And if you think about these miniature devices that we put in our pocket, they used to contain the content in the device. Now, like a mobile phone, the content is in the cloud. It comes from wherever. You don't know where it's coming from. You Google something, it could be a supercomputer in the United States, it might be in Europe somewhere. All this information is all now wireless, compact device.
Who owns the cloud also owns the story.
Yeah. Aren't they putting these little shoebox-sized satellites up there?
Which Mr. Musk is, yes. Yeah, Starlink, it's called.
Yeah.
Yes.
Starlink.
Trouble with internet from satellites is you can get a latency time for the signal to go up, go down. Yeah. And if you're on a phone call, for example, that can lead to difficulties because of the delay, which is like the old satellite.
Yeah.
Calls used to be overseas where you'd have a long delay.
Well,
so wireless has it. Yeah, if you can get the transit, but it's also the transit time of the signal.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. I really am grateful. Celebrating 100 years of broadcasting in South Australia, which is really in Australia because we did a great deal to kick it off. I must tell you about the time capsule at 5DN.
Yes, I was reading about that last night, actually.
Yeah, it's
20 years ago that it was dug up and reburied.
Tony Bell brought it up yesterday when I was talking to him, and I said, we went out and recovered it last year.
Well, I thought we should, because I don't think there's anybody apart from me, and I used to own the place, alive or interested.
Yes.
And here was the time capsule in front of what used to be the old Western Mining building. That was the home of Jack Hume.
Yes.
And it got knocked down, and they built this building. I don't know what it is, what it houses now, but somebody took the brass plaque off the top of it, so nobody knew except us what was in there. So the time capsule is sitting up in the garage.
Well, it's time to do it again then.
Why not? Why not? Free exhibition highlighting South Australia's radio stations, both public and commercial, brands and styles of radios that we had in our home, on-air presenters and disc jockeys. Yeah, that was a changing of the guard, wasn't it? When the disc jockey came along. Yes.
You were no longer a presenter.
No. Or an announcer. No.
You took your tie off then?
Yeah, God, yes.
Jeremy, here's the 5DN staff list, August 1984. It was in the all the employees.
Yeah.
Jeremy, it says here, is the morning announcement.
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
Oh, Frank Pangello was producer too.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Murray Nickel.
Yep. Can't hear you.
You remember Murray on TV when his house burnt down?
Yeah.
I know.
Yes, yeah.
I know. Radios and equipment made here in South Australia. Listen to some classic old radio serials. Try being a presenter for yourself. People can come along and be on the wireless.
They can, yes. We've got the production desk from 5CK from the mid-north in the library.
Yep.
And there's an old microphone with a touch key.
Yep.
And connected to it under the table is an FM transmitter that will transmit from 50 metres.
Okay.
And in the corner we've got an FM radio.
Yeah.
And especially kids can sit at the desk. We've got a mock-up news story and they can read the news, and mum or their friends can sit in the corner and actually hear it live on the radio.
And there's a VU meter there, and people don't know what a VU meter is these days, but you were never really, if you were a panel operator, allowed to get the needle in the red. Don't get the needle in the red.
And the exhibition is open until the 30th of March, so we've got a week and a bit to go.
A week and a bit?
Yes.
All right. Ian Smythe, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
And Andrew Fraser, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All the best to you both. Wonderful exhibition, and congratulations most sincerely.
Thank you.
Loved every minute of it.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.